Well, hello and welcome back. It's been a couple weeks since I've made a video, but like you, I get pretty busy with work, and in the States last week was a holiday. So during the holiday times, I kind of make it a point to shut down, really stay away from work, stay away from the news, stay away from social media and the internet, and just kind of unwind and decompress and spend some time with my family and really try to enjoy the moment. So I'm just getting back into it, but I did want to make a couple of quick videos because there has been some activity with the Sigma FP in the last couple of weeks. One of the things is that the accessories started to show up. So I ordered these with the camera. They've been on back order. They said they would start shipping the end of November, and right on time. They shipped the last couple of days of November, and I just received them. So what I ordered was a few components. First, I ordered the large grip for the Sigma FP. I also ordered the smaller grip, which bolts onto the side. I also ordered up the loop, which we'll definitely talk more about here in a moment. And one of the other things I got, which was not, oh, by the way, the loop does come with a mounting bracket. And the other thing that I got that actually the DP Quattros had was the little handle to kind of hold it in a different configuration. So it turned out to be a little bit interesting, although weird. So we'll talk about that in a second. So first, what do I think about the actual grips themselves? So this is what the FP looks like with the large grip mounted to it. Now, one of the first things that I do like is that it is a deep grip. Honestly, out of all the cameras I've ever shot with, which has been limited to the Nikon series, I've shot with the 3000, 7000, 700, 750, 810s, and the 500 series cameras. I've owned most of those, and I've also now shoot with Fuji, so I've had the X-T2, 3, and H1, which has a great grip. Out of all the cameras, though, I've ever shot with, the Quattro has probably the best, most comfortable, and durable grip. I mean, you could drive nails in with this thing. And this is pretty common comment made on this camera when people pick it up for the first time, is that the grip is really, really good and very comfortable. But it's kind of self-defeating in that the whole purpose of going with the mirrorless camera is that you're supposed to make them smaller, and yet you increase the size of the camera by almost a third by putting this big monster grip on it. But for those of you who like big grips, it's just one of the most comfortable grips I've ever experienced. And of course, your results will vary because everybody's hands are different. But that's what I get with the big grip, is that it has not nearly what the Quattro has, but it has a deep grip. I mean, it's really, really comfortable. You can really grip it well. So one of the things about the grip is that although the grip is deep and it has a really good feel, really good grip to it, the camera itself doesn't have a lot of height because it's so small. And what can happen is your pinky kind of rests right on that edge for me, or slips underneath a little bit. And there's this opening on the bottom, and it just catches it. And it's a little rough. It's just purely a tactile thing. Doesn't affect the performance of it at all. But I think that they could have smoothed out this grip on the bottom. So for people that have larger hands, I mean, my hands aren't large by any stretch, but they still go underneath. If you have smaller hands, probably really comfortable. If you have super large hands, maybe it will just tuck underneath. But I think they could have rounded that off. And that way you wouldn't have had to deal with the battery opening where it feels really rough. But that's just a preference thing, and that will vary from hand to hand. Here's the problem, though, that I do have with this grip. Although I love the fact of how deep it is, and you get a good solid grip on it, they did make the opening, much like my Fujis have, right? So you can replace the batteries. So you can go in here, you can pop the door open really easy. You can pop the batteries in, pop the batteries out, not a problem. But what happens when you try to get the SD card out? And I didn't think about this until I actually tried to get the SD card out. You hit the little SD button, the card release, and you can't reach it. There's no way to get the damn card out, right? You have to have very small fingers, or you have to carry tweezers with you to pull the card out, or every time you want to change the SD card, you're going to have to unbolt this mount. And I think that was a major oversight on the engineering when creating this big mount, which is probably why the small mount came out afterwards. If you're going to not change cards, if you're going to be tethering this, it would be fine. But if you got to change cards in and out, having to swap out the grip every time you want to do that is very inconvenient. And that's the only really complaint that I have. Yes, it would have been tactile-wise. They should have rounded this off a little bit, I think. But the grip is great. It's deep. I love the fact it goes all the way across the base of the camera, which makes it very stable when you put it down and you put it onto a tripod. But not being able to access the SD card without taking the actual grip off every time is just a showstopper, in my opinion, for most people. So let's take a look at the alternative, which addresses this, which is the small mount. So now here's the FP with the smaller grip. And this definitely addresses the issue with the card, right? Because there is nothing on the bottom and I can open it up and easily access the card. It, like the big grip though, your finger just kind of falls underneath because the camera's so small. And for some people that will feel really weird. For others people, it would probably be a perfect fit. What I'm more interested in though is you can see here that hopefully you can see it, the grip comes off and it gives a little bit of space, but it really covers up the cooling vents on the back of the camera quite a bit on this side. And when you put the loop in, the loop covers up a lot of the cooling vents across the bottom of the camera, which means that this is the only truly top and the sides are the only have the only open access now for cooling. And so if you're shooting video in that mode, I'm kind of curious as to will that affect the heat, or is 2 open vents enough? So that's my only concern about it. But the actual grip itself, I love the little thumb grip, right? Your thumb falls right into it. It's perfect. I think a perfect combination would have been combining this with the full-size grip on the bottom, a little bit deeper grip, but giving me that thumb grip, and it would have been perfect. But this is really the solution I think most people are going to go with, simply because you don't have to take it off every time you want to change the SD card. And there's another reason, which we'll show when we get to the loop, why I think the smaller grip is really the way to go for most people. And it's the way that I think I'm going to be shooting probably all the time, or at least most of the time. So let's take a look at the loop now. So this is the loop, or what they call the LCD viewfinder. And the way it mounts to the camera is it comes with this bracket. Now the full-size grip also has the same holes in here that these pins mount into, and then this bolts onto either the full-size grip or onto this mounting plate through these kind of skinny but large Allen screws. So let's go ahead and mount it up and take a look at it. Okay, so we've mounted the loop. It just took a couple of minutes. The base plate just screws on just like a regular tripod plate, and it does actually leave 2 openings for both size tripods, which is very nice. And then this loop then bolts onto that base plate with these 2 Allen screws. The loop itself, you can see it definitely makes the camera much larger, the viewfinder. I keep calling it a loop because that's what it really is. But I very much wanted this. And the reason is that up to about 10 years ago, my vision was perfect. And then I started to have some nearsightedness. And then in the last few years, it's gotten to the point where I have to put some glasses on for my near vision. And what this means is that when I'm shooting like portraits with this, I can sit there and I can look at my model perfectly, and I can direct that person without glasses. I can see them perfectly. But I can't tell if I have focus. If I'm doing manual focus on the LCD screen because it's up close, I have to wear glasses, which means that I'm either looking over the top of my glasses all the time, or I'm pulling my glasses up. And it's just kind of it's inconvenience, but I do it all the time. With an electronic viewfinder, it's not a problem, because with electronic viewfinder, I'll put my eye on there, I'll adjust the viewfinder for the compensation for my eye, which it can do that, and I don't have to wear glasses at all, which is nice. Well, now I have that option with the loop. So it has this cap that stays on very well, and it's honestly very, very comfortable, and it looks great. I mean, you get to see it. It's just the biggest viewfinder you're ever going to use, probably on a mirrorless camera, and it has great detail. It's super bright. For manual and focus, it's fantastic. I know it's big and clunky, but it's worth it. You won't have it all the time. Obviously, this is not something you're going to put on and throw in your pocket, right? But when you are doing shots and you're doing a session, say in a studio or on location, you want to make sure you got the shots, especially if you're outside when it gets bright out. Having the loop on, I think, is just a fantastic option. Now, the reason I said that you'll probably want to still use this small grip over the large grip does have the mounting holes for the pins for the loop. But again, if you now pop the loop in and on and off, I think one of the design flaws is there's no quick release on this. right? You have to actually get out and unscrew these Allens. And you're not going to want to sit there in the field and say, oh, hold on every second, everyone. Let me get my Allen wrench out and then take these out. And then you'll drop it on the screws on the ground and lose them. It's just very inconvenient. So with the full-size grip, you have to take the entire grip off, or you have to unscrew these. And you won't unscrew these in the field, so you'll kind of pull the whole grip off. So you lose your grip when you lose your loop. With the small grip, you can simply disconnect this plate, which is still a little inconvenient. It's not a quick release, but you can unscrew it and the whole loop will come off with the plate and you still get your grip. So again, I think this is why pretty much everyone's going to go with this, who wants a grip, is going to get the small grip, because it gives you the ability to access your SD card, which you can't do on the full-size grip, or it's very hard, I should say. And you get the ability to remove the loop with still having the grip on, which I think is pretty important. Now, the other thing that I did mention is that the grip does cover a lot of the cooling vents. Well, so does the loop. It covers pretty much most of the heating vents across the bottom of the camera. It does have these buttons that extend out. So all the same buttons you have on the bottom without the loop on are extended out on the loop, which is really nice. But this is an interesting configuration because it cuts off the cooling on the bottom and it cuts off the cooling on the one side. So now you've just got the vents across the top and the vents across here. Still shooting, this is never going to be a problem. But if you're shooting in video and you're shooting in 4K, it can get, cameras get pretty hot pretty quick. So it's going to be interesting to see if people experience with this particular configuration any heating issues when they're doing a video for long periods of time. Time will tell. We'll see. Now, the other accessory that I got, as I mentioned, was the handle. And that's because when people sometimes shoot video, they like to have a different configuration. This reminds me of those old, I think they were called the Super 8s back in the 70s that everybody seemed to own as a family of video shooters. And I got it because I figured, hey, why not? It didn't cost much. I got the other grips. Let's try them all out. And certainly as a stills photographer, I don't think I'd ever hold it like this. But as a video photographer, it makes a lot of sense. It gives a lot of stability. And here's the thing. With this small grip, you get a good grip around the corner with your fingers. You get the thumb grip. So this thing, both axes are controlled really well. And then your hand kind of wraps around the base, but then your thumb will probably go up here. And when it's like this, I mean, it's going to take an 800-pound gorilla to rip it out of your hands. It's surprisingly comfortable and extremely stable. And again, this is, what's weird about this camera is there are things about it that are certainly weird. There are things that are frustrating. And then there's these pleasant surprises that you never thought, or I never would have thought I would have liked. And this is the weirdest configuration that I've ever had as a photographer. But yet, this grip, holding it like this as a two-hand grip when you want to hold it, is so stable and it feels so comfortable. I really kind of dig it. Now, obviously, it's going to have some issues. You can't put this onto a strap because obviously you're going to get impaled by the handle, which isn't cool. And when you're mounting on a tripod, obviously you'd have to remove that. But it's just something that unscrews. It takes a second to do. So again, surprisingly, I bought it just out on a whim. Figured, why not? I'll try it, and I kind of like it. I think I might be using that. But this is the configuration that I think I'm going to be running and gunning with most of the time. It's got the hot shoe adapter put on, because I am going to see if I can fool this in my studio. I was able to fool my Quattro and have triggers, so I'm going to see if I can fool the FP as well. But I'll have the loop on quite a bit, but not all the time. It's certainly not for running and gunning like street photography, but I'll have it for anything I'm doing in the studio where I really want to make sure I have focus and I don't want to have to constantly adjust my glasses. And certainly I'll always have a grip on it because having this square, super smooth surface is not particularly comfortable. But this creates some interesting configurations. Now, one of the reasons I bought this camera was so that I could use it with my existing Sigma glass with converters. So what happens when I do that, and what does it look like? Well, it looks like this. Look at this craziness. So this is what happens when you're, again, taking what's being billed as the world's smallest full-size sensor camera, putting on the viewfinder, the loop, so you can see really close detail, using the adapter to mount what's probably one of the world's largest 105s. This is a crazy setup, and it will get some bizarre looks when I am out in the field with it. So for video, this is totally cool, right? Shooting stills, it's going to definitely be tripod mounted, of course. This thing will get very tiring very quickly. But I have shot with this 105 on this camera, and it works beautifully. Right, the 105 has crazy bokeh. It's my favorite portrait lens right now, and the 24 megapixel sensor takes full advantage of that. So anyways, I just want to show you some of the craziness. It is a modular system, and this is what happens when you start bolting stuff to a modular system, is that you're going to get 1,000 different configurations, and this is one of them. So we'll actually go out and shoot with this, and I actually have started shooting with it, not with the loop, but just with the lens, and we'll share the results.